The following video is sponsored by Aspire. Salutations, everybody. It is Matty here today. Hold your horses. We got to have a conversation mano-a-mano before we get into the meat and potatoes of today's video. I am a Star Wars junkie. Check the shirt, check my book collection, check my comic book collection, my game collection. I'm obsessed with Star Wars. And don't even get me started on my dog's name.
Is your name Revan? Is your name Revan? Is your name Revan? Yes, it is.
Something told me that Star Killer wasn't the best name for a dog, so I went with Revan. Anyway, Aspire approached me, and they were like, yo, we want you to make a video about the Force Unleashed port that we're bringing to Nintendo Switch. Normally, I don't do any type of video game-related sponsorship content because I'm a very heavily opinionated individual, and I do a lot of video game reviews. I don't want to taint that process. But since it was a very old game, one that I have played, check the receipts, check the dates, right there, bada bing, bada boom. I've played this game before. I've loved this game for many years. And they were like, hey, we're not really adding anything new here. We just want you to talk about the new port. I was like, this seems like the safest type of sponsorship for a game you could ever do. But me being me, I took it to Twitter and said, yo, what do y'all think about this? And it was hundreds of replies in the comments saying, yes, go do it. Go secure your bag. So with everyone's approval, I went back. Here we are today. Don't tell them about the KOTOR remake stuff. Yeah, don't tell them. Today, we're talking about Star Wars Force Unleashed, though. And I was thinking, how do I want to go about this video, right? And I thought to myself, it's been long enough. Let's talk about why Force Unleashed still slaps to this day. There are 1,000,001 versions of Star Wars The Force Unleashed, okay? The PS2, the Wii version, the 360 version, the Ultimate Sith version. There's been so many iterations, the handheld version on PSP. I know, it's hard to keep track of, and what's amazing is this was released in a time that I love so much about video games, and I know a lot of people weren't crazy about it, but we were getting pretty much different games under the same title during this era, where the Game Boy Advance version would be completely different from the PS2 version, which would be completely different from the Wii version, which would then be completely different from the 360 version. This was a special time for gaming, and one that I look back on quite fondly, because a lot of times as a kid, I would double dip into these safer purchases where I would buy Lego Star Wars on 360, I'd buy it on PS2, and then I'd buy it on the Game Boy Advance and go, hey, now I got 3 different experiences that all kind of play differently but mess around with the same type of content. So the version that you're going to be playing here on your Nintendo Switch is the Wii version of Star Wars Force Unleashed. I had never played this version before. I had played the Ultimate Sith Edition, the PSP Edition, the 360 Edition. I had never played this rendition, which is very similar to the PlayStation 2 version. A lot of people, as I was looking around online, were asking for some type of a remastered treatment for the PS2 version because we can still play, say, the 360 version on back compat, but you cannot play that PS2 or Wii version on current systems until now. So for me personally, diving into this was like a brand new experience in a really strange way, and some of the different mechanics I saw in this game that are currently in modern Star Wars games made me appreciate Force Unleashed even more. So this is why Force Unleashed to this day still slaps. Now, the version we're looking at today is available exclusively currently on the Nintendo Switch store. There'll be a link in the description if you're interested in supporting your boy and checking the game out. Go through that link down below. No PlayStation, no Xbox. Well, you know, Xbox got back compat. PlayStation fans, this is why you want to push for that back compat a little bit more. Anyway, let's talk about the game itself. So you play as Star Killer, who's this child who's discovered by Darth Vader when he's invading Kashyyyk. And it's one of the most epic intros in Star Wars gaming, in my opinion, because while it's showing you all these mechanics, it showcases the power of Darth Vader and the actual intimidating nature that is Darth Vader. You know, we see him in a very specific light in the original trilogy, but in this game, he's just on a downright warpath, massacring everyone in his way. And he detects what you would call a disturbance in the Force, and he finds a Jedi only to go, where's your master? And it turns out right behind him, boom, it's a little kid. He's like, whoa, well, I'm gonna kill everyone here and save this kid so I don't look weak. And right then and there is where Force Unleashed separates itself. You play as the villain in this game, and you are bonded closely to a major established Star Wars villain building off of his character. Now, the story here is non-canon, Normally that pushes me away. It's like, I want it to feel real, man. But that allows them to really play with some cool stuff in this story. Obviously, I don't want to spoil it any further. Now, you can unleash your epic force powers and lightsaber combos with Switch Joy-Con support. If you'd like to, you want to look like me, an absolute menace here in the studio space, you can go ahead and do that. But also, you can play in handheld. You can play on your screen with a Pro Controller. That's what I preferred to play it as, because one thing that this game does so well that I don't see many people talk about is not the story, not the gameplay, physics. Star Wars Force Unleashed gets physics so right. I force push everyone like my life depends on it in this game. And there's no better feeling than as you do a force push, sending a ton of stormtroopers, a ton of rebel troopers hurtling out of the way. Any debris in the room goes flying and it's dynamically bouncing around. For its time, Force Unleashed was very impressive, and going back to it, it's still extremely impressive. Now, I mentioned this is my first time with the PS2 Wii version, and for me, that was a cool experience because I got to play what was a more action-packed, more linear, arcadey-like experience of the 360 version I was so familiar with, where you would enter some rooms and there would be a meter, and you'd have to fight a horde of enemies, and that kind of gave you the opportunity to just go hog wild, to use your force lighting, use your force push, and just blast everybody out of the way. For me, that was such a great nostalgic trip, but it was also really letting the gameplay flex its muscles a bit. I think the reason you're able to connect with the gameplay pretty well is because the story just makes Starkiller this ruthless badass. That's what I love about the storytelling here, is the way he kills people. It's not just a simple lightsaber to the stomach, you know, epic music plays, we're done here. It's something much more sinister, like throwing a dude against a statue in an abandoned Jedi temple in Coruscant, and the way you kill him is just by throwing the whole entire statue on top of him. Or when you find some random mercenary, you get the answers out of him and you just flat out blow him up. These moments are what makes Starkiller a bona fide dark side member of the Sith. Something that modern Star Wars storytelling just does not want to get close to, and I can never wrap my head around why. One of the best aspects of Force Unleashed is that darkness and how that changes throughout the course of the story, but also how it's not any type of quick transition. I'm looking at you, Battlefront 2 story mode. Hello. These are the type of stories that I think hurt the light and dark side balance of Star Wars, where everyone wants to go to the light side. What if you were living on the dark side instead as the ultimate Sith Starkiller? And some of the things he's able to do with the Force, it made to me, the first time I played this as a kid, the Force not just this thing, I grew up during the prequel era, right? Not just this imaginary thing where you put out your hand and someone goes, "Ooh," and that's it. It made it this tangible thing that you'd see him like crushing down giant objects, slowly breaking them down, moving AT-ATs out of the way. It felt like a true, powerful thing to wield. And when it was in the hands of someone on the dark side who only cared about power, it became that much more intimidating to me. Now, you can travel the entire Star Wars galaxy in this game and defeat powerful Jedi Masters, as you've already seen across a ton of iconic locations we've seen throughout the Star Wars movies. So this is things like I mentioned Kashyyyk, the Wookiee homeworld. There's also Cloud City, the floor plan of Felucia, the junk world of Raxus Prime. One of my absolute favorites. I love Raxus Prime. Like, this is a Star Wars vibe, right? You're walking around this droid graveyard. They're raising from the dead. It's raining. There's a heavy, dark vibe. It's gritty. It really jives with the DNA of this game, and it's one of my favorite introductions to a brand new Star Wars planet I've never been to in a Star Wars video game until I played Force Unleashed. But I mentioned how you see in some modern Star Wars games lights of Force Unleashed. A lot of us love Jedi Fallen Order. I personally do. It's one of my favorite Star Wars games ever. And one thing that a lot of people like about that game is it's almost, we go back to KOTOR typically, right? Where you're in the starship and you're picking through the star map what planet you want to go to. but actually the way it's executed here in Jedi Fallen Order is very reminiscent of how it is in the PS2 version of Force Unleashed. So you'll go in there, you'll be able to customize your lightsaber with a variety of crystals, changing the color, changing the power crystals, so you can have a more powerful force push or a more powerful, say, force lightning. You can change the hilt to be better at deflecting blaster bolts. You can also change your costume to go from a training gear to heavy training gear, and much more you can unlock. They even have a cheat codes option. I love to see that in today's games. I mean, for me, just cheat codes seem like a thing in the past, and I never understood why. I get games are tough to develop for, but I think of like MLB Slugfest with the big head modes, and I'm like, man, this type of stuff's cool. So they have actually cheat codes in this game. And then on top of that, there's an upgrade station where you could spend points that you collect as you're going through the level, which gives it, as I said earlier, that arcadey feel. All these combos you're doing, all these force abilities you're doing, you're chaining them together, and you're getting points that you spend in this upgrade store to unlock new combos, new force abilities, new finishers, everything, the whole 9 yards. And that's the real strong loop of Force Unleashed. But then the way it completes sort of that, what I would say is the Fallen Order image, is when you actually go to the galaxy map and you can see all the different planets you can go to, and that's what brings you to your next mission. So you hop from planet to planet to planet. And I like that because, again, as someone who's played the 360 version ad nauseum, for me, it was actually really nice to experience it in a completely different way, a different approach there. Maybe it won't be everyone's favorite. I'm not going to say it's going to be the best ever, but it's definitely going to be something that, for those of you who are like me and only played one type of Force Unleashed, you get a new look here. And the story does go in different directions because of the way it's presented to the player, which for me, it kind of felt brand new, and that was really, really nice to have. This may seem off the beaten path here, but y'all remember this? Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, one of the best movie tie-in games ever made, especially the Game Boy Advance and DS version. Best side-scroller of all time next to Mega Man X. I will go ahead and die on that hill. But this game here had a multiplayer versus mode, and it was one that, again, was very slept on, criminally slept on. In this version, they have a local multiplayer mode called Dual Mode with 27 characters to choose from. So you can pick like Anakin Skywalker from Episode 3, you can pick Darth Maul, Ayla Secura, you can pick all these iconic Star Wars characters, Asajj Ventress, and get them to battle against each other in this multiplayer arcadey-like mode that is very similar to what we saw in Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. For me, when I saw this, I immediately thought of those times of playing couch co-op with my friends and going, man, this is such a movement here. Like, I'm so happy to see this type of stuff be alive in today's day and age, because for me, what I really like about Aspyr, I've said this before, so you can go ahead and blame it being a sponsored video, but you'll hear me say it again, is they really carried, in my opinion, the Star Wars brand, the brand I grew up with. All these games here, almost all of them, were ported forward by Aspyr. And I always appreciated that because to me, that seemed like a dead and gone era. It was so many licensing loops to dive through here. But now between them, between Limited Run Games, who's making physical versions of all these games, including Star Wars Force Unleashed, you have kind of game preservation here. Important game preservation at that, I would say. Something that, as many of you know, based off being the host and owner of Retro Rebound, is something that means quite a lot to me. So when they came to me and were like, yo, talk about this old game and do whatever you want with it, I was like, I'm going to remind people why these games matter, why it's important to preserve them. And I'm hoping that Aspyr's work, even though they are going forward with KOTOR Remake, isn't done here with porting stuff forward, because they still got the sequel, maybe. They still got the sequel to the best game ever made, Knights of the Old Republic. So fingers are crossed for that one, because I think this is a great reminder of how fun old video games used to be, and having them available on current platforms is just a true blessing. So a lot of great memories in this game, a lot of cool moments of pure badassery. Like I said, the way that Starkiller murders people is, I hate to sound sadistic, but it's actually incredible. And you combine that with the arcadey gameplay, all the force powers, the physics, the multiplayer versus mode. It's a great package still to this day. And for me, one that was really refreshing as someone who's replayed the Star Wars Force Unleashed game on PS3 360 a number of times and just run through it, because it's a great popcorn film kind of video game. But this, to me, really brought it to a different light because it was a new perspective. So that's all I really had to say about Star Wars Force Unleashed. If you were asking whether or not you should play it, this isn't going to be the 360 version that you can play in back compat, but it is still a fantastic version at that. One that I really did enjoy. And again, if you want to support your boy, there will be a link in the description down below. You can click on that. You can pick up the game that way, and it would help the channel out a lot. But of course, that is up to you. I just wanted to remind you all why this game still slaps. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, what do you think of Star Wars Force Unleashed? Let me know in the comments down below. Shout out to Aspire for sponsoring this video. I mean, hey, if I could get sponsored for doing old game coverage, that sounds great to me. So shout out to them for supporting the channel, supporting what we do here, especially with all the KOTOR coverage. It was actually pretty cool to see they wanted to work together. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, let me know what you think down below. And a big thank you to all the patrons, all the members, and all of you who were really vocal in the support of this video. I can't emphasize that enough. The fact that when I posted a tweet, I expected like a couple dozen replies to kind of help me gauge where I'm at. But the fact that you came out in hundreds and just said go for it was really encouraging. It was the push I needed to get over that edge and go like, okay, I think I can comfortably do this. So not only thank you to the patrons and members, but just anyone supporting the channel here. These types of sponsorships do help out a lot. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, take great care of yourselves, and I'll catch you all in the next video. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.